We all have to have goals in order to achieve what we want to achieve. Welcome to McBain Moments. So, over the past 8 to 12 months, I have been doing a lot of reading. I have been doing a lot of self-development, as I'm sure you are able to tell through these videos. And so one of the things that I have noticed is that the hardest thing to do is to set goals. Goals that you can shoot for, and goals that you can eventually cross the finish line on. And so at the beginning of this year, I don't like New Year's resolutions, because New Year's resolutions are January platitudes. After January, everyone forgets about them. So what I did was I formulated 9 goals that I wanted to accomplish this year, and I give myself the whole year to do it. And they're currently sitting up on that door. You can see them right here, right? I'm trying to do the whole, there we go. Haven't figured this whole camera thing out yet, right? So I've been rereading the book Think and Grow Rich. I've mentioned it many times. I'm going to put a link to that book down in the description so that if you're interested, you can read it too. But I've come up with the 5 elements to good goal setting, and I wanted to share them with you because I believe that by distilling these 5 elements out of the reading that I have done, because he sets the whole plan out for you and then breaks it down into its tiny little elements. But this is kind of the general feel of it, especially since that book was written in the 1940s, I think. No, it might have been the 30s. I think it was pre-World War II. He wrote it a long time ago, and a lot of the language is very dated. And so I took out of it and I kind of narrowed it down in focus to what we in the 21st century would look at and how we would say it. And so the 5 things that you need to remember when goal setting. Number 1, be specific, not abstract. One of the biggest problems we have when goal setting is we are way too vague with what we want. Napoleon Hill is very specific with how to accomplish this, but he always uses dollar amounts. In the modern age, although accumulation of wealth is often a goal for many people, we more think in terms of lifestyle and things of that nature. And therefore, when you have a goal, whether it's to accumulate wealth, or you want to get a specific car, or you want to buy a house, or you want to develop a certain skill set, be specific with what you want to accomplish. Right down to, right down to what specific parts of an achievement you are looking to achieve within your time frame. And on that note, number 2 is choose something achievable. And you'd be surprised what's achievable. That doesn't mean don't go for the long game. That doesn't mean aim for something that is really difficult. But if your goal is to become King of England, that's probably not going to happen, right? So make sure when you're formulating these goals, you aren't pushing yourself outside of the boundaries of reality. And I'm going to say this, reality can be stretched pretty wide. You can bend reality to your will if you have the drive. But know that the harder the goal you set, the harder it is going to be for you to achieve, and the more you're going to have to be willing to sacrifice to get it. So just keep that in mind when you're writing these goals down. And I'm not saying don't aim for something difficult. By all means, please aim for something difficult, because that's when you really test yourself. Just when you write it down, make sure it is something that is actually accomplishable. Number 3, have a deadline. One of the biggest mistakes we make is we set goals and we're like, yep, this is my goal, and I don't know when it's going to be done by. And because of that, we're able to tangent off into little side things and never come back to our goal. And in 20 years, we're like, oh, I never accomplished my goal. I should get on that someday. No. When you come up with your goal, say, I am going to accomplish X by Y. I'm going to accomplish X by Y. So, as an example, one of my 9 goals was to take my fencing test to get my black scar for the Black Tiger fencing program. Now, that deadline was actually set for me by the test proctor. So I didn't get a choice in that matter. But if I didn't have that deadline, what are the chances that I would have actually gone and taken the test? Probably really low. And it's not because I didn't want the test. It's because I would have found excuses to not make the time to take it. And I'm willing to admit that freely. I'm not very happy with that fact, but it's a fact. So when you come up with a goal, form a deadline. And I'm going to get into why the deadline is important in just a few minutes. Number 4, write it down. If you don't write down what your goals are, you don't write down the deadline, there's no way you're going to hold yourself to that goal. None. Because it's not front and center. You're not looking at it. You've let it roll around in your brain, but you haven't made it in such a way that it can be seen by others. You can't see it yourself. It's too amorphous. It has to be concrete. Just like the goal has to be concrete, you have to write it down so it's concrete in your brain. So always write down your goals. Number 5, and I'm sure you've heard me allude to this the whole video, hold yourself accountable. If you don't achieve the goal within the deadline, say, okay, sit down, look yourself in the mirror and say, what did I do wrong? What feedback do I need to provide myself so that when I reset this goal with a shorter deadline, I'm going to achieve that goal? And sometimes an obstacle will come up that's insurmountable. It's rare, but it does happen. If that happens, don't tyrannize yourself to the deadline. Be willing to sit down and say, okay, I broke my leg. Obviously, I am not running the Boston Marathon this week. I am going to reset that time horizon for 1 more year so that my leg can heal. And I'm still going to accomplish the goal. So you're not making an excuse if there is something that is absolutely preventing you from doing it, but it has to be pretty big to prevent you from doing it. So go out there, set a goal, write it down, and hold yourself to it. This has been a McBain moment.